My name is Elena Hart. I was 38 years old when I learned that a woman can disappear long before she ever leaves. People think losing yourself happens suddenly. A slammed door. A betrayal. A funeral. A dramatic goodbye. Mine happened slowly. In grocery bags cutting into my wrists. In dinners I cooked but barely tasted. In polite conversations where my voice was heard just enough to answer questions, but never enough to matter. And by the time I understood what had really been happening, I had already spent 12 years becoming useful to people who never learned how to value me. I was married to Aaron Hart. We had one daughter, Claire. She was 9 and still believed adults always meant what they said. I used to believe that too. Aaron's family liked to call me dependable. His mother said it often. His sister said I was practical. His father mostly called when something needed lifting, arranging, paying, fixing, or remembering. At first I took it as love. Then I mistook it for responsibility. Then I stopped asking what it was. Because when enough years pass, survival can begin to wear the same face as loyalty. I became the woman people reached for first. Not because they respected me. Because I carried quietly. I hosted birthdays no one wanted to plan. I babysat children that were never mine. I drove Aaron's father to appointments. Cooked through holidays, remembered school recitals, prescription refills, anniversaries, diet restrictions, even how much sugar Aaron's mother liked in her tea. 1 spoon, never 2. She once told guests I made it almost right. Then smiled like criticism was a family language everyone should understand. Everyone laughed. So I laughed too. That was one of the dangerous things about quiet humiliation. It rarely arrives dressed like cruelty. Sometimes it wears manners. Sometimes it sounds like concern. Sometimes it looks exactly like family. My coat had been with me longer than my marriage. Dark brown wool. Frayed at the cuffs. One missing inner button. Old enough to remember winters I had already forgotten. Claire used to slip her tiny hands into its pockets while we walked to school. "Mama," she asked once, "why do you always wear this coat?" "Because it lasts." That was what I told her. Now I think I was talking about myself. That December was bitter. Sharp wind. Gray skies. The kind of cold that settled into window frames before sunrise. 3 days before Christmas, Aaron's sister Rebecca called. No hello, no softness. Just expectation. "You'll host Christmas dinner. Not can you. Not would you, just certainty." I stood in my kitchen holding half a chopped onion and staring at the sink full of dishes. How many people? 12. Then she hung up. By Christmas morning, it became 16. No warning. No apology. Just bodies. Perfume. Wet boots. Laughter. Noise. Heat. And me in the center of it. Cooking. Carrying. Clearing. Smiling. Aaron barely noticed. His father complained the potatoes were late while I was still peeling them. Rebecca brought extra guests. His mother corrected how I folded napkins. Claire spilled juice and apologized with more sincerity than most adults in that room. Still I bent. Still I carried. Still I stayed soft, because for 12 years, softness had become another word for endurance. Then came the sentence I still hear more clearly than any shouting. I was standing in my own dining room with a tray of teacups warming my palms. People were eating, passing bread, reaching for gravy, talking over each other. Ordinary. Safe. Then Aaron's mother looked at Rebecca and said, "Clear enough for everyone to hear. If Elena has ever been good at anything, it's carrying what everyone else leaves behind." Laughter. Small. Brief. Polite. The kind that excuses itself before anyone has to call it cruel. Nobody defended me. Aaron said nothing. People kept eating. That was the moment I finally understood something I should have learned years earlier. I had not become important in that family. I had simply become useful. My coat was hanging by the front door. Still wet from snow. Heavy. waiting. And for the first time in 12 years, I did not know whether I was about to put it on or finally take it off. I did not move right away. That surprised me. I always thought if a breaking point came, it would feel dramatic. A raised voice. A plate shattered. A hand slammed against a table. Something loud enough to justify what came after, but the worst kind of hurt is often quiet enough to make you question whether anyone else felt it at all. I stood there holding the tray. Tea trembling in porcelain cups. Steam rising. My palms burning, and 16 people continued eating as if my humiliation had simply joined dinner. Someone asked for butter. Someone laughed at something unrelated. Rebecca kept talking. Aaron kept chewing. His mother lifted her glass. Life continued. That was the cruelty. Pain does not always stop a room. Sometimes it only stops you. I placed the tray down slowly. No shaking. No tears. No scene. That had always been my talent. I knew how to stay composed while something inside me bent another inch. Then Claire looked at me. My daughter had been sitting at the far end of the table between her cousins, her paper crown tilted sideways from dinner crackers. 9 years old. Still soft-hearted enough to believe adults noticed everything. She had heard it. I saw it in her face. Children always know when silence means something heavier than words. Mama. Just one word. Quiet. Small. But enough. I smiled at her. The practiced kind. The safe kind. The kind women learn when pain must wait its turn. I'm fine, I said. That was my oldest lie. And maybe my most expensive one, because I had been saying it for years. I'm fine when I'm exhausted. I'm fine when I'm ignored. I'm fine when kindness is mistaken for obedience. I'm fine when my voice disappears. I'm fine when I keep carrying what everyone else drops. That night, I heard how tired those words sounded inside my own head. Aaron's mother reached for another piece of bread. I only meant she's dependable, she said with a soft laugh, like cruelty could be folded neatly into explanation. Dependable. That word again. Always spoken like praise. Always landing like expectation. Rebecca smiled without looking at me. She really is. I don't know how she keeps up. Neither do I thought. Aaron finally glanced at me. Not angry. Not protective. Just mildly uncomfortable. Like tension was something to wait out until dessert. You know Mom didn't mean anything, he said. There it was. The sentence women hear before they begin doubting what hurt them. You know she didn't mean anything. You know he's just stressed. You know their family. You know how they are. I had spent 12 years learning how easily truth could be softened when it inconvenienced everyone else. I looked at him. At the man I had loved. At the man I had built a home with. At the father of my child, and for the first time, I wondered whether silence had made my life easier, or only easier for everyone around me. Claire stood suddenly. Her juice tipped, a fork clattered, small chaos. Everyone looked up. Her little voice shook. That was mean. The room froze. Not because the words were loud. Because they were honest. Aaron's mother blinked. Rebecca stared. Someone coughed. His father lowered his fork. 16 adults. Silenced by a child. Claire looked at her grandmother. You hurt Mama. My throat tightened. Because children do not yet know how to disguise truth for comfort. Aaron whispered, Claire. But she kept standing. Tiny hands clenched. Face red, brave in the way only innocence can be. She always helps everybody. No one answered. Because what defense exists when a child names what adults have ignored? I crossed the room. Knelt beside her. Touched her shoulder. It's okay, I said. She looked at me. No, it isn't. That sentence entered me deeper than the insult had. Because she was right. And because I had spent years teaching her kindness, while accidentally teaching her that kindness meant swallowing hurt. I could not let that become inheritance. I stood slowly. The room watched, not because I had ever been the loud one, because I had never interrupted the script before. My coat hung by the front door. Dark wool, wet from snow, heavy, waiting. I looked at Aaron's mother, then Rebecca, then Aaron, then the table I had fed, the room I had prepared, the family I had served, and I said the quietest, dangerous sentence of my life. Dinner is over. Silence. Nobody laughed this time. No one moved. That was new. For 12 years I had moved first. I had stood when someone needed serving, reached when something needed carrying, apologized when peace needed protecting, bent when comfort belonged to everyone except me. But now, 16 people sat frozen at a table I had prepared, inside a house I had cleaned, eating food I had cooked, staring at the woman they had always mistaken for endless patience. And I remained standing. Aaron blinked first. Elena. Soft voice. Careful tone. The one people use when they still believe calm can push truth back into hiding. I turned to him. No. Just one word. Not loud. Not sharp. But it stopped him. Because I had spent 12 years saying yes in different forms. Yes, I'll handle it. Yes, it's fine. Yes, don't worry. Yes, I understand. No was a language they had never heard from me. Aaron's mother set down her fork. This is ridiculous. There it was, not apology, not reflection, only inconvenience. Because when people have lived comfortably inside your silence, boundaries often sound like disrespect. I looked at her. My voice stayed even. No. Again. A little stronger. Her jaw tightened. I made a harmless comment. I thought of Claire still standing near her chair. Small shoulders tense. Watching. Learning. Children rarely remember every meal, but they remember the night truth changes shape in a room. So I chose my next words carefully. Harmless things don't teach children to apologize for pain they didn't cause. The room went still. Rebecca shifted in her chair. Aaron's father stared at his plate. One of the extra guests quietly reached for her purse. Because strangers often recognize broken dignity faster than family. Aaron stood. Elena, maybe we should talk privately. That sentence almost made me laugh. Private, as if humiliation had happened privately. As if pain should always move behind closed doors while disrespect stayed welcome at the table. I shook my head. No. I have spent too many years being corrected quietly after being hurt publicly. Aaron's face changed. Not anger. Something more uncomfortable. Recognition. He was beginning to hear me, and maybe realizing how long he hadn't. His mother crossed her arms. You're overreacting. I breathed once. Steady. Measured. That old instinct to soften everything rose inside me. Explain it. Fix it. Reduce it. Carry it. I let it pass. Then I said what had lived under 12 years of silence. No. I've been underreacting. Nobody interrupted. Even the heater humming near the hallway suddenly sounded louder. Claire looked at me like she had never seen me and had always known me at the same time. That nearly broke me. Aaron rubbed his forehead. You know Mom loves you. Love. That word. So often used to excuse what accountability would expose. I met his eyes. Love without respect becomes obligation. He had no answer. His mother laughed once. Short. Cold. So what now? We all leave because your feelings got hurt? My coat hung beside the front door. Dark wool. Frayed cuff. Wet with melted snow. Heavy. Waiting. I walked toward it. Each step sounded louder than it should have. Not because I was leaving. Because for the first time, I was walking toward myself. I lifted the coat from the hook. Its weight settled across my arms like memory. Years of winter. Years of carrying. Years of staying warm while becoming smaller. Then I turned back to the table. My voice stayed soft, which made it sharper. Yes. Dinner is over. Then I looked at Rebecca. You brought extra guests without asking. At Aaron's father, you complain more than you thank. At his mother, you call humiliation honesty. Then finally at Aaron, and that one hurt most. You watched me disappear and called it steadiness. His breath caught. The room felt thinner. Truth always changes air. No one defended themselves. Because naming patterns is harder to argue with than reacting to one moment. One by one, chairs moved. Coats lifted. Purses gathered. Murmured excuses. Polite discomfort. The same people who had laughed minutes earlier now avoided my eyes while leaving through the front door I had opened for them every holiday. Snow wind rushed in and out as each guest left. Cold. Clean. Honest. Soon only 4 of us remained. Me. Aaron. Claire, his mother. She did not stand. She sat rigidly at the end of the table like leaving first would mean surrender. Finally she said quietly, "You've changed." I held my coat against my chest. No, I looked at Claire. Then, back at her. I finally stopped hiding. That was when Aaron's mother stood. And before leaving, she said one sentence that made Aaron go pale and made me realize this dinner had never really been about Christmas. Aaron's mother picked up her handbag, straightened her scarf, buttoned her coat with the same calm precision she had used for years whenever she wanted to pretend control was the same thing as dignity. Then she looked at Aaron. Not me. Him. And said, "You sound more like your wife than your father now." Silence. Real silence. Not polite silence. Not dinner table silence. The kind that exposes old wounds no one planned to uncover. Aaron went pale, his jaw tightened, his hand dropped from the back of a chair. And I understood immediately. This had not only been about me. This family had been rehearsing old power for years. And I had been standing in the middle of it without knowing. His mother walked to the door. Snow wind slipped in when she opened it. Then she left. No apology, no slam, just footsteps fading across frozen stone. The front door closed, and the house felt unfamiliar. Not because something had broken, because something false had finally left. Claire was the first to move. She crossed the room and wrapped both arms around my waist. Small hands, warm cheeks, shaking shoulders. Children often cry after truth, not during it. "Mama." That was all she said. I held her, my coat still pressed between us. Heavy wool, frayed cuff, wet at the shoulders. Protection I had worn so long it had begun to feel like skin. I kissed the top of her head. "You did something brave tonight," she sniffed. "I didn't want them to hurt you." My throat tightened, because children often defend what adults normalize. And because I had almost taught her silence by example. I crouched until we were eye level. "Being kind is good," I said softly, "but being quiet while someone hurts you is not the same thing." She nodded like she was storing it somewhere important. Then I sent her upstairs. Bath. Pajamas. Bed. Normal things. Because even after life changes shape, children still need bedtime. Then, it was only me and Aaron. The kitchen still smelled like rosemary, roasted onions, and cooling gravy. Half-eaten plates sat abandoned across the dining table. Wine glasses. Crumbs. Wrinkled napkins. A battlefield disguised as dinner. Aaron stood near the sink. Hands braced against the counter, looking older than he had that morning. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he asked quietly, "What did she mean?" I looked at him. "You tell me." He stared at the floor. Then laughed once. A hollow sound. Not amusement. Recognition. My father believed the loudest person should always lead. He swallowed. Mom followed that. My sister learned it. I learned to avoid it. His voice thinned. "And I think I let you carry things, because carrying was easier than confronting them." There it was. Not cruelty. Something harder. Complicity. Quiet people can enable damage just as effectively as loud ones. I folded my coat over my arm. "Do you know what hurt most?" He looked up. I continued. "Not her." That surprised him. I saw it. So I said the truth plainly. It was watching the man I loved stay silent long enough for me to wonder whether I mattered less than peace. He shut his eyes. Pain moved across his face like something long overdue. Elena. This time his voice broke. And I knew he was not asking to defend himself. He was asking whether anything still stood. I answered carefully. Tonight changed something. He whispered. Is this the end? That question. So small. So human. So late. I looked at our half-cleared table. At Claire's spilled juice stain. At the steam gone cold from tea I had never served. At the years behind us. Then I said, I don't know. Because honesty was now part of survival too. That night, after Claire was asleep and Aaron had gone silent in our bedroom, I stayed downstairs. Still wearing my coat. I sat alone in the dining room. Moonlight through the windows. Cold radiators clicking softly. A house finally quiet enough to hear my own thoughts. I touched the frayed cuff. That coat had survived rain, snow, long bus rides, pregnancy winters, hospital nights, funerals, financial strain, and every season I had mistaken endurance for strength. Maybe strength had never been carrying everything. Maybe strength was deciding what no longer belonged on your shoulders. At 11:17 p.m., headlights crossed the front window, then another, a car door shut, then another. I frowned. Too late for visitors. A knock came, 3 firm taps, not Aaron's family, not neighbors. Different. Measured. I opened the door. And froze. Standing under the porch light was a woman I had not seen in nearly 14 years. Tall. Silver hair. Dark gloves. Same sharp eyes. Same stillness. Aaron's estranged aunt. Margaret Hale. The woman his family never mentioned. The woman who had left after a fight no one explained. She looked at my coat. Then at me. Then said the first sentence I had ever heard from her. You finally said no. Good. Now I can tell you what this family has been hiding. And suddenly, Christmas dinner was no longer the biggest thing about to break.